Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
We are talking about history in today's program. We're going to be talking about ancient Egypt. We're not going to talk about modern Egypt. We're going to talk about the Egypt of the pyramids and the pharaohs and people like that. And we're talking about the way they loved cats. Okay, cats tend to be disliked animals in lots of parts of the world. In the past, when I asked people in Taiwan whether they preferred dogs or cats, most people said, I like dogs. They're friendly. I don't like cats because they're sneaky and they're evil and they're selfish. So yeah, most people don't really like cats. Nowadays, it's kind of changed a little bit. Some more people like cats. But I guess in ancient Egypt, they actually worshipped cats.
Oh, yeah, it was shocking to read this. I had no idea they were treated like royalty in Egypt. We're going to learn more about ancient Egypt's perfect weakness, and then we'll be back. We're going to talk about cats today.
Cats ruled in ancient Egypt, and not just in their own minds. These clever, graceful creatures were so deeply respected by the Egyptians that harming one could lead to severe punishment, even death. But why did the Egyptians hold cats in such high regard? It wasn't just because they were cute. Cats played a crucial role in protecting the country's grain stores from pests. As guardians of Egypt's food supply, they were seen as sacred animals. The Egyptians honored them through Bastet, the cat-headed goddess of protection, the home, and fertility. Egyptians didn't just love cats, they worshipped them. Cats lived in luxury, wearing jewelry and eating from their owners' plates. When a family's cat died, everyone would shave their eyebrows in mourning. Cats were even mummified with great care. Archaeologists have found entire cat cemeteries with thousands of mummified cats, some even buried with tiny mummies of mice for their journey to the afterlife. The most extraordinary example of the Egyptians' devotion to cats comes from the Battle of Pelusium in 525 BC. The Persian king Cambyses II knew about the Egyptians' love for cats and used it to his advantage. He ordered his soldiers to march with cats in front of them as hostages. When the Egyptians saw this, they couldn't bear to harm the sacred animals and chose to surrender instead of fighting. This led to Egypt falling under Persian rule. Now that's what we call being a cat person. Modern cat lovers might spoil their pets, but they've got nothing on the ancient Egyptians. Okay, let's talk about the contents of today's lesson. We've got a rather clever title here, Ancient Egypt's Perfect Weakness for Cats. Okay, of course, as you know, cats, when they're happy or they're content, they make this kind of purring sound, something like that. And, of course, perfect reflects the word purr, P-U-R-R, which is a verb. It just refers to the sound that cats make, and I guess other members of the cat family make this sound as well. I think tigers make it, and lions as well, although it's not going to sound the same as a regular cat. And some people, when they say purr, they kind of roll their R's here. Perfect, a perfect cat, or purr. You can do it either way. I realize that's a difficult sound for people in Taiwan to make. So yeah, if you just say purr, that's fine.
It's good to practice, in case you want to learn Spanish or maybe Italian.
Or Indonesian.
Yeah, you got to.
Indonesian.
Yeah. We grew up with Spanish a lot in America, so most of us can roll our R's. My dad couldn't.
Oh, no.
Which is very interesting.
My daughter can't. I'm kind of ashamed that she can't
she can't
say perro in Spanish, which means dog. But again, if you're speaking Spanish and you say perro, they'll probably understand you based on context.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that too much.
It's like saying a Chinese word with the wrong tone.
Right. We do that all the time. Ni hao ma, ni yao chu na li wan.
Yeah.
Yes, foreigners often mess up the tones.
You just have to guess sometimes. So let's take a look at these cats. Cats ruled in ancient Egypt. They ruled, meaning they had the power of like a king or a queen, and not just in their own minds. We're making fun of cats here. Cats think they're pretty cool if you've watched their attitudes. They seem to be very arrogant, very haughty. Cats aren't my favorite animal, but I know a lot of you out there love cats, and so that's okay. I had a cat growing up, but Charlie was actually very friendly. So it depends. Cats are very different. Most dogs are friendly unless they're mean and they're bred to be mean and hurt people. Those are different, okay? But most dogs love attention. They love people. They love to be petted. They love to love you. Cats, I have a friend in South Korea currently who teaches over there, and she has a cat who bites her.
Oh, no.
This cat is taken care of so well, and she bites her owner all the time.
I guess she needs to talk to Jackson Galaxy, who may be able to fix that problem. He's a guy who works with the cats with
cat therapist.
Behavior problems. I don't know if that TV show's on anymore, but again, we're talking about pussycats. And I just wanted to ask you, was Charlie your cat? Was he an orange male cat?
No, black and white.
Black and white, okay. Every time I run into an orange male cat, they're always very friendly. So if you want to get a friendly cat, you got a good chance of having a friendly cat if you get a male orange cat. Okay, they're usually quite friendly. The other ones, it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes they're friendly, sometimes they're antisocial, etc., etc. But cats, of course, ruled in ancient Egypt and not just in their own minds. So yeah, cats kind of have egos. They think they're the king of the house. These clever, graceful creatures were so deeply respected by the Egyptians that harming one could lead to severe punishment, even death. So we're describing these cats as being clever. Yes, cats are clever, although I understand, according to research, dogs are actually smarter than cats a little bit. And they're clever, although cats, of course, can always think of ways to get out of dangerous situations. They're also very graceful. When they walk, of course, they walk very gracefully.
They're good jumpers.
With their tails in the air, and they always stop to clean themselves. They're very clean. And, of course, they were deeply respected by the Egyptians. Most people, of course, hate cats. They think they're evil. But the Egyptians really admired them. The Egyptians deeply respected them. Someone from Egypt is called an Egyptian. And if you harmed a cat, if you hurt a cat, hey, you could be punished for that, and you might even actually be executed. You might suffer the death penalty.
Wow. They talk about severe punishment. Severe just means really intense, really great, strict, harsh, just for hurting a cat. And Tom, I have to disagree with you. I don't think most people hate cats.
Well, nowadays, I think more and more people like cats, yeah.
People in America love cats. They've loved cats forever. Here, I have a lot of friends with cats now, so they find them easier to take care of as a pet than a dog. But,
well, they are useful. They do kill rats, and
they do.
They might even kill roaches, too. So, we should not take cats for granted.
No, but when you hold something in high regard, it means you have a lot of respect for that thing or that person. Or maybe you hold a professor in high regard because he's been an excellent mentor. We're going to find out why they held Egyptian cats in such high regard long ago. It wasn't just because they were cute. Cats played a crucial role in protecting the country's grain stores from pests. Now, when I first looked at this, I went, grain stores? They had stores that sold grain? What? No. Grain store here is being used in a different way. It's not a store that you walk into, you pick up what you want, and you pay for it at the counter. No. That's a retail store. Here we're talking about a supply of something that's kept in reserve for when you need it. So they have stores of grain that they would keep for harsh times. They had a lot of droughts long ago. They couldn't control the weather like we can today. We control our weather these days. But they couldn't, and so they'd have these droughts for years, and people needed grain to even survive. So they would have good years where they could harvest a lot of grain and store it, and that's what we're talking about here. But of course, as most of you know, if you store something, you have to watch out for those little pests. Pests are little insects that get into what you're storing, and they eat it, and they mess it up completely. You don't want pests destroying something. You can also have pests. Maybe you go on a picnic and ants start crawling on your blanket, or they're all over your food, or you've got bees or wasps or all these different kind of insects that can be just things you don't want around. So a pest can just be something that's destructive. It's usually attacking things like food or crops, livestock even. There are pests for livestock that we raise.
Indeed. And of course, think about the word pester, which means to bother. And it might help you remember the word pest as being an animal or an insect that harms us or tries to attack our grain and eat it without our permission. Now, as guardians of Egypt's food supply, they were seen as sacred animals. So the Egyptians did appreciate the role that cats played in their society, and therefore they considered the cats as sacred animals. Sacred means holy. You need to protect them, just like in India, or at least according to Hinduism. Cows or cattle are considered sacred, and of course there are different kinds of sacred animals all over the world, but in Egypt, hey, cats were sacred, so you better not harm a pussycat.
Right, so the Egyptians honored them through Bastet, the cat-headed goddess of protection, the home, and fertility. So, of course, they had their own gods. This is one god's name called Bastet, and it looked like a cat's head on top of the goddess. I've seen these. They're kind of funny looking to me. And I think, why do they have a cat on top of that statue? But now you know, they used to worship cats. It makes sense that they would put a cat head on top of this statue. So this goddess was someone who they'd pray to or offer offerings to so that they would be protected, that their homes would be protected. And also, it was the goddess of fertility. Fertility meaning families could have babies or animals would have baby animals, and then they could continue producing, other livestock that way. So this was how they honored the cat. They gave their god, Bastet, a cat's head.
Indeed. And of course, this particular goddess represented the home and fertility, the ability to reproduce and produce other people so that Egypt could continue to survive into the future. Okay, we're going to continue talking about cats in just a couple of seconds, at least cats in Egypt. Please stay tuned, but right now we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。不知道大家呢是不是家里有养宠物啊，养狗啊，或者是养猫哦？像我认识一个朋友，他简直就是一个猫奴，爱猫成痴。不过讲到这个猫奴，你知道史上的第一猫奴国是哪一个国家吗？其实是古埃及耶。古埃及人实在是太爱猫咪了。我们今天来看这个文章，好有趣。不过这个文章呢设计成克漏字，我们要特别看一下就是第4题啦，这个文法的部分。好，不啰嗦。总而言之呢，古埃及其实是被猫咪统治的。这样说好像不为过哦。到底是什么样的情况啊？因为这些聪明优雅的猫咪生物深受埃及人的尊敬，以至于如果当时你伤害一只猫咪，可能会被判死刑耶。好，我们看一下第一段这边，请特别注意一下第2句。第2句这边其实有一个特别的句型就是 so that 的句型。有时候句子很长，通常都是暗藏着例如像是特殊句型so that, such that， 或者可能有关系子句啦，甚至有很多的连接词都会让英文句子很长。那这时候其实你也不要焦急，我们就耐心的看。那当然耐心的看去寻找之前，还是要对于英文的句型有一些基本的认识，比如说很常见的 so that, such that 一定要认得那因为 so 本身是一个副词，所以它通常会修饰形容词或者是副词。那 that 后面就是以至于什么什么结果的产生，所以基本上 so that 的这个句型它是一个表示结果的英文句型。回过头看大家这个第一段的第2句如此的 so deeply respected by the Egyptians， 如此深深的被尊敬，有没有修饰后面的 deeply respected that， 以至于如果你伤害猫的话，就受到什么样的惩罚，甚至死刑。大家注意一下，像克漏字在选字的时候，其实在这一句本句或甚至是前文下文，有时候都会跟答案会有密切的关系。例如在这里的 punishment 之后有 even death， 甚至死亡言下之意这个 punishment 的惩罚是非常严厉的非常严厉甚至会死这样子才会通顺，有没有？所以第一题答案要选 C。那当然第2段就来 讲到说为什么这个古埃及啊，为什么会被猫咪给统治呢？其实不只是因为猫咪很可爱啦，因为猫其实在当时的古埃及它是有功用的它保护埃及的谷物储备，免于受害虫的侵害，所以它非常非常的重要。那这个扮演很重要的角色在英文当中也有一个句型啊，它是一个片语，或我们说句型也 OK。第二段的第一句分号之后，我们看到的 play a crucial role in something， 在某一方面扮演什么样的角色，这个什么样的角色形容词就可以放很多进去啦。所以基本上猫咪当时是有功用的，甚至当时是作为一个粮食这个供应的守护者，他们是这样子被看待的嘛，所以他们被视为一种很神圣的动物。接下来在第二段第二句的地方，第二句这个第二题前面呢是 as 什么东西呢？你看从后面到逗点都没有动词这个没有动词的情况之下，这个 as 一定就是一个身份。那既然是讲 food supply， 一定就是说根据前面嘛，就要保护这个农作物啊，免于被害虫给吃啦，那当然就是一个 guardian。 那甚至是女神巴斯特就是一个猫头女神
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue talking about pussycats. Specifically, we're talking about cats in ancient Egypt. I don't know how modern Egypts feel about cats, but at least in the time of the pharaohs, cats were deeply revered, they were sacred, they were respected, and they were protected by law. If you harmed one piece of fur on that cat's head, you were in big trouble. Now, Egyptians didn't just love cats, they worshipped them. Okay, now if you worship something, that means you pray to something. Like if you're Christian, you worship God. If you're Islamic, if you're a Muslim, you worship Allah, etc. So, yes, they prayed to cats. They considered them holy.
Ooh, kind of fun, huh? So it wasn't just because they were cute. They had that crucial role in protecting the country's grain stores so people could eat, even if a drought were to come. They didn't just love them. They worshiped these cats. We worship gods by going to church, for example. People worship on Sunday. But you can also worship a deity by just expressing reverence and adoration for that deity or God. Deity is another word for God, lowercase G-O-D, God. So these cats lived in luxury. This is my favorite part. They would put jewelry on these cats.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine these cats walking around with diamonds and rubies and emeralds on? And they would also be allowed to eat from their owner's plates. This is not cool. Now, sometimes I've seen owners of cats, they have cats as pets. They'll take pieces of food from their own plate and feed it to the cat. But to let that cat lick my plate, oh no, that's not happening in my house.
I used to let my cat Kelly lick my hair. When I went to bed at night, he would sleep on the pillow and then he would start licking my head.
Really?
Yeah, he would do that. I think cats have that sort of tendency to lick people with fur or hair or whatever. Sometimes they lick other cats as well. But yeah, that was kind of fun. Until I found out what a cat's tongue actually looks like. It's like got all these microscopic little thorns on it or something like that. So it's kind of scary if you look at a close-up picture of a cat's tongue. But in any case, yes, I think they probably wore the jewelry on a collar around their neck. I don't think you can put the jewelry in other places.
Oh, they would shake it off.
Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't like that.
It would be irritating for the cat,
Yeah,
for
the jewelry was for the human's benefit, not the cat. The cat probably wouldn't know the difference between a diamond or a rock or whatever. But when a family's cat died, everyone would shave their eyebrows in mourning. I don't quite understand why they would do that, but if you shave, that means you cut hair off of your body. Like some men, of course, shave every day. I used to shave every day, but now I only shave about once every 2 days or so because I keep getting cut and I don't want to grow a beard. So yes, indeed, men shave. But in this particular case, they cut off their eyebrows or they shaved them. You cut off the hair from your body using a very sharp razor blade.
Yeah, razor or razor blade. Or some people have those electric razors, that they plug in or have batteries in. They can use those. This is not something I would do. I think you need your eyebrows to look like a real person. People who have lost their eyebrows, maybe they've been going through chemotherapy, they've had cancer, you lose the hair on your face. And I know that they'll often take eyebrow pencils and draw in eyebrows. We use our eyebrows for expression. And so if you don't have eyebrows, it's hard to see the expression someone has. Now, in mourning, if you're in mourning, you are very, very sad because someone has died and you feel a lot of sorrow for that. If you're in mourning, some people will wear black clothing. I know some Jewish friends in New York, if they were in mourning, they would have coal on their face, charcoal, pieces of coal. And the men don't bathe for a week, I think it is.
Wow.
It was very different. I wasn't used to that culture. I'd grown up in Arizona. We didn't have a lot of Jewish folks. So different people do have different cultural rituals if they're in mourning. The cats were even mummified with great care. If you mummify something, you turn something into a mummy. So they would take out the blood. I was reading about this. They would mostly remove all the organs except for the heart. They would let the heart dry out, desiccate it, dry out. They would often remove their brains too and then sew back their skulls. So they would mummify these cats like they did the great mummies, the great pharaohs a long time ago. Now, archaeologists have found entire cat cemeteries with thousands of mummified cats. I have not heard this before. This is very interesting.
Right. An archaeologist, of course, is somebody who studies ancient civilizations. They dig in the ground and they look for artifacts like, bones, but also maybe pieces of ceramics or things like that. And they found entire cat cemeteries with lots of mummified cats. So a cemetery, of course, is a place where you bury the dead. It could also be called a graveyard, but a cemetery is a more formal word for this, a nicer sounding word. And, of course, they found these mummified cats in those cemeteries. And some of those mummified cats were even buried with tiny mummies of mice for their journey to the afterlife. So even the ancient Egyptians knew that cats love to chase and kill and eat mice. And, of course, they actually mummified the mice for the cats in their journey to the afterlife. That's the life you have after you die, whether you go to heaven or hell or whatever the afterlife. Yes, indeed, they believed in it back then, too.
Yeah. Now, these cemeteries are also called graveyards. You can use that term as well. Cemeteries is a nicer, more polite way of talking about where we bury the dead. So, they found these cat cemeteries with all these mummified cats. I thought it was really cute, Tom, that they even gave them tiny mummies of mice for their journey in the afterlife. Now, the most extraordinary example of the Egyptians' devotion to cats comes from the Battle of Pelusium in 525 BC. It's not a battle I'm familiar with. If you are into history, you might want to look that up. Extraordinary is one of our vocabulary words. If you look at this word, you can divide it up into two. Extraordinary. I know some people pronounce it that way, extraordinary. You could do that, I guess, if you want. I think extraordinary is the preferred pronunciation. Extraordinary, meaning very unusual, remarkable, unusually great. And they were really devoted to these cats. A devotion is the noun form of the word or the verb to devote yourself to something. It just means you're really loyal. You love that thing. You're very enthusiastic for it. Could be a person. It could be an activity. Or if you're into social causes, it could be that as well, where you're devoted to somebody or something. You spend a lot of time concentrating on those things you're devoted to.
Yep, that's the verb phrase, to be devoted to something. I'm hopelessly devoted to you. That's a line from an old song. And yes, indeed, Egyptians were devoted to cats, so their devotion to cats comes from this battle. At least that's a particular example of their devotion to cats. This battle, of course, happened in ancient times. The Persian king Cambyses II knew about the Egyptians' love for cats, and used it to his advantage. Okay, so sometimes, of course, you need to find out your enemy's weak points, and the Persian king knew about their love for cats, so he thought, let me think of a way to use that against them. So he used it to his advantage and against the Egyptians. He ordered his soldiers to march with cats in front of them as hostages. Okay, a hostage, of course, is a person, or in this case, a thing, that you make prisoner, and then you make somebody else pay you some money, and then you'll give them back. Okay, that's a kidnapping. If you kidnap somebody, then you have a hostage. Of course, there are hostages in the Middle East. Of course, if somebody, takes over or captures some people, and they keep them and say, hey, if you don't, do what we want, we'll kill all these people. These are the hostages. They're prisoners, political prisoners, basically. And yes, they kept the cats as hostages so that the Egyptians would see that and go, my goodness, what are they going to do to those sacred animals?
I love this. I read it and in my mind pictured these soldiers with a bunch of cats in front of them. Just so funny, just to imagine. It's hard to control cats, so I would have been kind of surprised. Maybe they had them on leashes. And they were having them march in front of them.
It's hard to walk cats, though. They want to go their own way.
I know.
And cats usually don't like to be held.
Oh, no. So when the Egyptians saw this, they couldn't bear to harm the sacred animals and chose to surrender instead of fighting. So this is how they solved the problem. We give up. To surrender just means you quit. You give up. We use this word a lot in wars or battles where one side is losing and they decide we're going to surrender rather than let the enemy kill us all. So you give up, you cease resisting to an enemy or maybe an opponent. When my family would have tickle fights at home, some people would say, I surrender. It means stop, I'll submit to you. So this led to Egypt falling under Persian rule because of the cats. Can you imagine?
Indeed. That's very clever. Hopefully they did not suffer too much under Persian rule. Persia, of course, is where modern-day Iran is, or that general area. And here in the final paragraph it says, now that's what we call being a cat person. Okay, so oftentimes we describe a person who likes cats as a cat person. Not just people who like cats, but they're actually obsessed with cats. They probably have Hello Kitty shirts or whatever. They're always thinking about cats. They get special food for their cat. They take their cats for walks in baby carriages.
I have a friend like this.
Indeed. So we describe that person as a cat person. I like cats myself. I love the little furry devils, but I would not describe myself as a cat person. I like them. I'll feed them. I'll be nice to them, but I'm not obsessed with them. But still here, the king of Persia there was actually a cat person because he knew how to defeat the Egyptians using their love of cats against them.
Okay, so maybe you could chat about whether your class are cat people or dog people and why you like one or the other. Right now, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to wrap up.
接着我们就看到啦，这个埃及人其实不只是爱猫哦，他们还会敬拜猫诶，所以其实猫就是过着很奢华的生活。怎么样奢华呢？会戴珠宝啊，甚至还从主人的这个盘子里面吃饭哦，就是跟人几乎是一样的。在第3段的第一句，我们看到这个 worship 会崇拜哦，敬拜猫。第2句看到的是一个分词构句，我们先把一开始的 lived 这个动词抓出来 ，lived in luxury。好，这个 luxury 就可以从后面的 jewelry 这个地方来做一个意思上的呼应。所以 live in luxury 很奢华哦。居住的样子如何呢？后面其实有2个动作，逗点之后的穿戴跟吃东西，也就是生活方面的动作有没有？不就是 live 同时之间发生的事吗？所以2-3个动作同时发生，通常我们也会把 and and 直接省略掉，把后面第2个、第3个动作都直接用动词 ing， 就会有一种同时发生这种动感产生。甚至后来考古学家还发现有那种整座的猫墓地耶，整个数千只被制作成木乃伊的猫，还有什么小老鼠木乃伊也埋葬在一起，供应他们的来世之旅哦。这实在是真的太妙了。好，不过第3段最后面第5句我们要看一下，这就是我们今天要看的重点，第4题。像这种文法题有时候就很烦，有没有？我们好好耐心的来看。首先一开始看到这个 archaeologist 考古学家 have found 已经发现了什么什么东西，逗点之后看到埋葬，有些甚至还被埋葬，用这个很多的这个小老鼠一起来埋葬。所以其实它有第二个动词就是埋葬，可是我逗点前后我没有看到连接词所以如果你想要选 B 这个选项的话，是少了连接词哦。其实它的句子就是说，考古学家就发现了整个猫墓地，而且有一些猫是这样被埋葬的。其实还原它就是一个 and some were even buried， 所以这一题只能够选一个连接词 and 删掉之后 were 换成 be 动词 being 也被删掉了，只能剩下 even buried， 所以它是一个 and 省略的分词构句，所以第4题答案要选 D 哦。那当然最后面我们就有看到说波斯啊，甚至到最后打败埃及人，就是因为波斯利用这种埃及人爱猫的关系，他们拿猫来当人质，所以波斯人就赢了那一场战争。所以下次我们说啊，某些人是猫奴 cat person 的时候，其实他们还是比不过古埃及人，对不对？好，以上是我们今天的内容，希望大家喜欢。我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us, and maybe you too will be a cat lover someday. If you prefer dogs, say dogs and cats, they're all unique and special in their own ways, okay? And remember also to check out our content on YouTube and Facebook to better your English listening comprehension. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.